Imagine this: a force so subtle, yet so powerful, that it shapes your thoughts, distorts your desires, hijacks your ambitions, and commands your attention without you even realizing it. A force that masquerades as pleasure, but enslaves your will. A force that has toppled empires, destroyed great men, and left countless lives in quiet ruin. But what if overcoming this force is not just possible? What if it is the single most liberating act a human being can perform? Ponder this deeply. Whoever overcomes lust overcomes the world. This is not a message of suppression. This is not about demonizing desire. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about freeing yourself from the illusions that lust weaves into the fabric of your thoughts, your choices, your very identity. Lust is not just about sexuality. It is the hunger for possession, for stimulation, for escape. A hunger that feeds on your attention and leaves your soul starved for meaning. In this journey, we're going to unfold truths that have echoed through the minds of sages, philosophers, and psychologists across the ages. From Plato to Carlyle, from ancient Stoics to modern thinkers, the warning has been clear. When desire rules the mind, reason becomes its servant, and the self becomes its prisoner. But here's the promise. By the end of this exploration, you will have not only insight, but the beginning of mastery. And the final revelation will arrive at the last and most powerful truth may just change the way you see your inner world forever. Think about the times lust disguised itself as love, when it made promises of happiness only to leave behind emptiness. How often has lust whispered to you that satisfaction lies just beyond one more click, one more conquest, one more indulgence? And how often have you found, instead of fulfillment, a deeper hunger? Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, argued that human behavior is largely driven by unconscious desires, primarily of a sexual nature. He believed repression of these desires leads to neurosis. But Carl Jung, Freud's protege turned critic, saw a deeper path. He taught that by confronting and integrating these primal urges, by bringing them into consciousness and transmuting them, we don't repress them, we evolve. This is the essence of self-mastery, not denial, but transformation. Jung referred to this as the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are by facing your shadows and integrating them. Lust is one such shadow. When unconscious, it controls us. When brought to the light, it becomes fuel for growth, creativity, and even transcendence. Have you ever wondered why so many spiritual traditions speak of chastity, self-discipline, or celibacy, not as rules to oppress, but as pathways to clarity and power? In Hindu philosophy, the concept of brahmacharya speaks of preserving one's vital energy, not wasting it through compulsive indulgence in sexuality. In Christian mysticism, the saints saw lust as a veil over the soul's eye. In Buddhism, craving is seen as the root of suffering. Again, across cultures, the message is echoed: there is freedom beyond desire. But to overcome lust is not simply to resist it. It is to understand it, to sit with it, to observe its movements in the mind. Where does it arise from? What pain or void is it trying to soothe? Is it really about pleasure, or is it a mask for something deeper? Fear, loneliness, inadequacy. When we look closely, we see that lust often emerges not from abundance, but from lack, not from love, but from longing, and it promises connection, but delivers isolation. This is why modern life, flooded with hypersexualized imagery and instant gratification, breeds not freedom, but addiction. The algorithms know what you're drawn to. They feed your compulsions, not your curiosity. They keep your nervous system on high alert, constantly seeking, swiping, scrolling, but never arriving. This is not pleasure, this is captivity. And yet most people never stop to ask, what would my life feel like if I were no longer ruled by this compulsion? Pause now and ask yourself, what decisions have I made or avoided because of lust? What relationships have I entered, stayed in, or ruined because of it? How much of my mental energy is consumed by chasing illusions? These are not easy questions, but they are the doorway to liberation. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, who wrote in his journal, Meditations, that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoics taught that freedom does not come from indulging every impulse, but from mastering them. And mastery begins with awareness. So what is lust truly? It is not just a biological impulse. It is a psychological construct. It is how you relate to the idea of pleasure, the promise of escape, the illusion of wholeness through external stimulation. Lust makes you believe that satisfaction is out there, always just out of reach. But here's the shift. When you realize that nothing external can complete you, you reclaim your power. When you understand that your craving is not for a body, an image, or a thrill, but for connection, meaning, transcendence, you begin to wake up. And once you begin to wake up, the world no longer controls you, because the world runs on lust. Consumerism feeds it, marketing exploits it, social media magnifies it. Lust keeps the machine going and keeps you distracted from what truly matters: your purpose, your peace, your presence. You were not born to chase shadows, you were born to become light. And if you still think this is merely about physical desire, think again. Lust is a mirror, reflecting how we relate to all things, to power, status, approval, novelty. It is the constant craving for more, the dissatisfaction with now, the hunger that never ends. To overcome lust, then, is to reclaim the present moment. It is to silence the craving and listen to the soul. What would your life look like if you were no longer seduced by every passing desire? How much energy would you free up? What clarity would you gain? What kind of person would you become? This is the invitation, not to suppress, but to transcend, not to escape desire, but to alchemize it. And we're only getting started. Let this sink in. The world will always try to lure you with what glitters. But once you know what is real, you can never be fooled again. And in the next chapter of our journey, we'll explore how ancient wisdom and modern science together point to one undeniable truth: that overcoming lust doesn't just free you from suffering, it unlocks a deeper power within you that few ever truly discover. What happens when you stop being a slave to your impulses? When you no longer let fleeting cravings dictate the direction of your life? You begin to reclaim something that for many has been lost for years: sovereignty of the self. Let's go deeper. Neuroscience today confirms what sages have taught for millennia: that compulsive behavior rewires the brain. Each time you give in to a lustful impulse, a feedback loop is reinforced. Dopamine spikes, temporarily rewarding the behavior, but over time, your baseline of satisfaction drops. What once excited you now feels normal, and you need more to feel the same. This is not freedom. This is dependency dressed as desire. Dr. Anna Lembke, a psychiatrist and professor at Stanford, explains this in her work on dopamine and addiction. In her book, Dopamine Nation, she shows how modern society, with its endless stimulation and access to pleasure, creates a paradox. The more pleasure we chase, the more pain we feel. Why? Because the brain seeks balance. When you overstimulate the pleasure centers, the brain compensates by dulling its response. You become numb, empty, restless. And this is where lust becomes dangerous. Not because desire itself is bad, but because unchecked desire slowly replaces your ability to be present, to be whole, to be free. Now think about this in your own life. How often have you reached for something, a screen, a fantasy, a person, not out of joy, but out of discomfort? How often has lust become an escape hatch from boredom, from anxiety, from your own silence? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Lust, when left in the shadows, feeds shame and secrecy. But when acknowledged, owned, and redirected, it becomes the rocket fuel of evolution. Let's be clear, this path is not easy.
The path to freedom lies
It
not
demands
in indulgence, nor in repression, but in awareness. And awareness transforms everything. When you become aware of your desire, you can investigate it. You can ask, what am I truly hungry for? What wound is this urge trying to soothe? What truth am I avoiding? And in that honest inquiry, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see that your desires are not your enemy. They are your teachers. They show you where you are divided. They show you what you fear. They show you what you have yet to love in yourself. And that is the key. Because the final stage of this journey, the highest transmutation, is love. Not romantic love, not the love of possession or attachment, but the love that holds all parts of yourself in compassion, even the ones that feel unworthy, ashamed, addicted, especially those. Because healing does not come through shame, it comes through seeing fully, clearly, tenderly, and choosing to stay. To stay with your discomfort, to stay with your emptiness, to stay with your humanity. And from that place of radical presence, something begins to shift. Lust dissolves, not because you fought it, but because you outgrew it. Like a child who no longer needs a toy. You begin to realize that the thrill was never the thing you wanted. You wanted to feel alive. You wanted to feel whole. You wanted to feel love. And now you no longer seek it in images or illusions. You find it in the stillness of your own being. You find it in the silence between breaths. You find it in the way your heart softens when you stop running. This is the ultimate overcoming, because the world, poured in all its distractions, seductions, and false promises, no longer has power over you. You are no longer chasing ghosts. You are no longer craving things that break you. You are no longer trying to escape yourself. You are here. And that presence, quiet, unwavering, grounded, is what all spiritual masters point to when they speak of enlightenment. It is not some distant state. It is the return to your original self, untouched, uncorrupted, whole. This is what the mystic poet Rumi meant when